Hey, my name's Adam. You might know me as Crashtroid. I'm the composer for Peglin, and I've done additional music on Foul Damage. Today I want to break down a little bit of the music that I've worked on for Peglin and really talk about and highlight the storytelling and the instrumentation featured in the game. Peglin includes a few different instruments that are pretty integral to its identity, namely a piano, an upright bass, and a marimba. As you go further through the game, you'll start to discover new instruments that mean new things to the story and world of Peglin. So without further ado, let's open it up and explore some of that music. For our song breakdown, I wanted to talk about the later stages in the game, specifically the mines. These are some of my personal favorite songs in all of Peglin, and I really wanted to kind of pick them apart and we can explore them together. So a little sample for you here. So one of the primary things about this track that makes it stand out compared to the rest of the soundtrack is the way that I've written the bass. I'm combining this contact bass with a different patch from a plugin that I really like called Massive. It's a very bubbly synth kind of sound, and because it's really, really low down, it kind of complements the bass in a way of giving it a little bit of sliminess and a little bit of grunge. It's not a very comfortable place to be for Peglin, so that little bit of extra bubble and pop from the bass, I think, helps even that idea out a little bit more. Another thing to note is that the signature marimba line is being affected by a different mallet instrument this time around. This time we've also got a celesta that is present in the soundtrack as well. This one was chosen a little bit more to identify the crystals in the environment, right? There's crystals everywhere and they shine and they're nice and pretty. So in my mind, it kind of offsets the kind of sinister undertone of the track to have a really pretty soft mallet instrument playing along with the marimba. You can see how it's combined there with the melody, and then it gets its own spot here being a counter melody, and then eventually gets a full focus right here. It's nice and soft, it offsets the marimba really well, and emblematic of the crystals in this environment, which is its signature look. All the while that we have all these other instruments playing, we have a really sinister, gross kind of choir in the background. Those chords are very important to this song. You'll hear them over and over. Now, the effect stack that I used to build that is on top of a basic choir from Contact again. And you can see here that there's only 3 plugins being used, and all of them actually are default with FL Studio. Gross Beat was the first thing I applied to chop the sound a little bit more and modulate when its volume goes up and down. Then I added some reverb to kind of give it that spacious effect of being in a larger environment like a cave. And finally, I added a phaser on it and chose a preset here that kind of mangles the sound beyond its original recognition. So I'll turn each one of these on as I play the loop. Watch these 3 orange dots and see what the different plugins will do to the sound here. The effect stacks that I use are pretty simple in my opinion, and I think you can get a lot of mileage out of a lot of default stuff that is included with your software. You'll hear this voice make a recurrence in the song and then eventually in the next one as well. Sometimes it ends up being part of the chords and sometimes it's just ambience. The staircase effect on this audio kind of gives it that idea of slowly progressing towards a deeper and deeper part of the cave. So I chose a couple more sounds to identify parts of the caves that do not belong to Peglin, like in the beginning of the song. You can hear some tuned gongs and a synth line, both again from Massive and Contact. Those are 2 of my favorite plugins, and you'll see them being used quite a bit during Peglin. You'll hear the marimba come in quite frequently after the stage elements have been present in the music. The reason I do that all the time is just to represent Peglin slowly gaining more confidence about the environment that they're in, right? There's a little bit of fear, and that eventually transitions to curiosity and then discovery. That's kind of the motif that I use throughout most of the soundtrack, is a story of becoming more comfortable with your environment and then trying to make your own presence in it. It feels a lot like someone's own personal journey, and I try to replicate the feeling of that through the music as much as I can. This is another point to the instruments from the forest, the more Peglin-ish area of the game, being corrupted with different sounds. So we have the Melodion track from the forest, and it's actually being corrupted with a brand new saxophone line, a baritone saxophone to be specific, both of which are from Contact. I'll let you listen to that here. The saxophone is unique to the Mines, but the Melodion actually makes an appearance in most of the Peglin-centric songs, so the Forest, the Encyclopedia, and other things like that. The reason that I keep adding different instruments to the pre-existing ones is to demonstrate the corruption of Peglins, which if you've played the game, you'll know that many of the enemies within it actually are Peglin adjacent and have either been corrupted or possessed in some way. And as Peglin is discovering that, there's a certain level of familiarity, but also uncomfortability. That's where we get the synth layer added to the bass. That's where we get the Melodion being layered with the saxophone, and it kind of pushes that idea more. Now, for one of my favorite tracks in the game, I wanted to show you a little bit of the boss theme of the Mines, which could represent one of any 3 final bosses of the game, but it does represent the end of the journey for Peglin as it is right now. So this boss theme really cranks up the heat, and immediately you can tell right when the bass starts going wild, right? The bass is moving quicker than it ever has before in the game. And because it is so iconic to the Mines to be focused on the bass, I really wanted to highlight that during this boss theme. One of the final elements actually added to this track was the choir stabs, where I got a plugin. It's from Spitfire Audio. It's called Originals Epic Choir, and it has these short staccato syllable sounds that I found really, really interesting. They get randomized as I use them, so they actually end up being different without me having to modulate them at all on my own. You'll hear them a lot through the song, and they kind of lend a more like powerful and dramatic feel to the song. I'm sure you had an idea that choirs would do that to a song, and this is the finality of Peglin, right? That's why I ended up using it in this song and not in any others. The drums are actually the exact same kit all the way through the game. Every song from the very beginning of the forest to the end of the Mines uses the same drum kit exactly. I ended up choosing this to make sure that the feel was consistent between those few instruments that were iconic to Peglin, but it goes way harder near the end of the game. Now that you've had a chance to understand the process that goes into these songs, I'll just give you a second to listen to it. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening. I really appreciate it. I hope this was both educational and maybe a little bit of fun at the same time too. This is Crashtroid from Red Nexus Games. Have yourself a good one. Enjoy the rest of Save and Sound 2024.